guys, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Um, Today, the plan is to get a rover up to Duna or out to Duna, whichever that one fits better. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, but we are attempting to get a rover to Duna. Um, I'm using the built rover because it's worked before for me, and it's actually a very nice rover, and I don't really think I can build a better one, honestly, because I mean, it's very, very simple, so it doesn't take much to build a rover. So I just used the sky crane that they have already, the rover plus sky crane preload uh, piece, and loaded it up and built the rocket underneath it. Um, I built this rocket in hopes that I would have way too much fuel to get to Duna, basically. I kept second guessing myself and not really and just debating on how much fuel I wanted to use and what engines I wanted to use, and I just really just couldn't make up my mind. As you can see right here, of me switching things around. Um, I thought that the first stage had too much, or the final stage had too much fuel on it, so I dimmed it down because I was going to use a nuclear engine on this section of the rocket. Couldn't even think of the word. Wow. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna run a dry run on this rocket. I think it'll be too much fun just to try to wing it, and hopefully we'll get there. Um, I'm There's like a certain launch time when we can actually launch to Duna for the most efficient way to get there. But I mean, I don't have any clue on how to do that stuff. I mean, I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants here, really. I'm just like kind of winging it. Um, I've gotten the Duna before with a rover, but it didn't really end well. I got the rover on the surface, and then the rover exploded, if that makes sense. I didn't crash it into the surface. I kind of landed it a little bit, and then things went horribly wrong. Yeah. So I added lights to this rover too because it doesn't have any lights on it. So I mean they're huge on the rover, but I just have a feeling they'll be extremely useful for some unknown reason. I mean, granted, the solar panels on the thing and the amount of battery charge that the rover can hold itself isn't really very much. So if we are fully charged, we probably can only run for a little tiny bit while it's dark out on Duna. But the biggest problem I have is getting on the surface of Duna. And basically, I built it in the same way that the Curiosity rover was built. I put a heat shield on the bottom, and ooh, that's what I forgot to do. I forgot to add parachutes. Holy crap! I'm gonna do that. I mean, like I'm building this rocket right now, but I'm gonna add parachutes onto the rover base because I completely just forgot to do that. And that would have been very bad if I forgot to put parachutes on the rover. Oh man, I'm glad I freaking thought of that, or glad I went into the explanation of the Curiosity rover, because that would have been embarrassing. Get all the way out to Duna and then be like, oh, I forgot to put parachutes on this. What do I do now? Oh, so I'm gonna add parachutes to that. But anyways, I basically built it in the same way that the Curiosity rover was built to actually get to Mars in real life. Which I'm actually gonna link a video to the 7 Minutes of Terror video. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it is very, very intriguing and very amazing what the engineers had to do to even get the rover on the surface of Mars, which is absurd. And honestly, ever since I started playing this game, I became a huge space nerd. Not very, wasn't very, intrigued by it. I mean, I knew it was interesting, but like I didn't really get too deep into it. But then I started playing this game and I just started researching like space travel and all these things, and it's just been awesome spending my time doing that. But anyways, I built it the same way as the Curiosity rover for the roughly. So we're gonna enter the atmosphere and use the atmosphere to slow us down, and then deploy parachutes, and then get rid of our heat shield on the bottom of the rover, and then slowly get the thing to the surface with the parachute, cut the parachute, and then use the sky crane to lower the rover onto the surface of Duna, and then fly the sky crane away. Hopefully that works out. I mean, it does kind of work in this game, but it's full. I mean, it's difficult, but it's probably not nearly as difficult as they had to go through to get the Curiosity on Mars. Um, but we're gonna attempt to get to Duna, and yeah. So what else? Is there anything else I wanted to say? I don't. I think I covered everything. This is another system of rockets that I use that peel away as we ascend into the atmosphere. Um, it's a very, I mean, it's a pretty light rocket. So I mean, pretty much all the amount of weight that I've added onto this has just been fuel and thrust. So we should be okay. But we're gonna see as soon as we get onto the launch pad, and we'll actually see if we're able to get to Duna with this thing. We might have to redesign it a little bit here and there, but if that's the case, I'll fix it as I go. So I will see you guys on the launch pad. Alright guys, we're on the launch pad, and this is the new and improved rocket, which the only improvements I made was making bigger, or putting bigger solid rocket boosters on it. The small ones weren't quite cutting it, and I kind of wanted to use the bigger rocket boosters to drive the spacecraft further up into the atmosphere without using my main engines. So that's pretty much the only adjustment I made. I just I don't know. I just added those on there. I just switched them out, different from the build video because I wanted to, and I put those parachutes on that I said I was going to put on, which would have been terrible if I didn't do that. So we are going to turn on our SAS and throttle up to I'll throttle up pretty much almost all the way here, because we're going to have our solid rocket boosters drive us first, and then we'll worry about our main engine. So we're going to go ahead and launch this puppy in 3, 2, 1, go. So we're going to let these solid rocket boosters burn off a lot of their fuel before we start kicking in the main engines. Mainly because I want to save as much fuel as we can on our way to Duna. Because I just would rather get there with too much fuel than not enough, personally. I just think it'd be a safer bet, really, to do it that way. So that's the way I'm doing it. Don't judge me. So getting to Duna is quite a pain, actually. I'm probably gonna chop this video up a bunch because there's gonna be a lot of waiting for the orbits to align and adjusting the maneuver nodes and stuff. So I'll probably chop this video up a bit, but each part I'm probably gonna do live just so you guys could see me fail miserably live, because I mean that would be more entertaining than just recording over me crashing things into the surface of other things. So we're gonna start our main engines now and get that extra boost going, and then we're gonna disconnect our solid rocket boosters now. Get rid of those, throttle all the way up so we lose as little momentum as we possibly can, because I want to keep the speed that we're going as much as possible before, while we ascend into the atmosphere. We're still losing velocity. Oh, there it goes. Now it's starting to go back up. So now we're gaining speed again, but I am burning a whole lot of fuel to do it, which is not good. So the good news is that we have 3 external tanks on this top section right here that we can use if we absolutely need to. We're gonna probably tip this guy over a little earlier than we normally would. We're probably gonna tip it over at about 9,000 meters instead of 10 to 12, mainly because the whole spacecraft itself is lighter, and we really need to get to that horizontal speed going before we. Let's disconnect these now, and we really need to get that horizontal speed going as much as possible to get into orbit with or as efficiently as efficiently as we can. Wow, couldn't even muster that up. Good job. So we're turning over a little bit earlier, and obviously the rest of our maneuvers or our adjustments to our gravity turn are gonna adjust, accordingly. So I turned over at 8,000. I put 10 degrees over on the nav ball at 8,000 meters, and at about 16,000 meters, I'll turn it over another 10 degrees, and so on and so forth. Um, and hopefully that'll help us get into orbit a little bit easier. Um, I'm going to throttle down just a touch, just to play it safe on the whole amount of fuel thing going here. There we go. We're still gaining speed, but we're not burning fuel as nearly as fast, which is a good thing. And if you guys hear like crackles or pops or anything, I'm sitting directly next to a fireplace because it is starting to get cool where I live. So I have a fireplace going right now. So don't mind any crackles that you might hear. But where was I going? I don't remember what I was talking about. But we're on our way to Duna. Yeah. So we're going to hopefully get this thing into orbit. We're going to disconnect these two engines. We're going to throttle all the way up to make sure we don't lose any velocity whatsoever. And we aren't. Woohoo! And we're going to keep this at about 30 degrees tilted to the east. Or to the right on your nav ball. So we're going to probably keep it there until we get our apoaps up to a reasonable altitude, which is roughly 80,000 meters or 80 kilometers. So we'll keep burning in this direction as long as we have to start getting into our orbit. Right now we're going, I don't know if you guys can see that, but about 530 meters per second in relation to the surface of Kerbal. And I'm going to go ahead and switch this over to orbit because it's a little more useful to me. So right now, according to our orbit, we're going around 800 meters per second. So we need another, so we need to be going 2.2 kilometers a second to get into orbit, really. And I really don't know if we're going to have enough fuel in this engine because we have our nuclear engine, but the only problem with our nuclear engine is that it has thrust, but it's only really good as soon as you get out of the atmosphere because it doesn't really have enough thrust to really make a dent whenever you're still in the atmosphere. So what we might do is use those external tanks right here and filter them into this engine so we can use it to get us into orbit instead of trying to use our nuclear engine to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing that because I have a feeling that we're not going to make it. So what I'm going to do is drain all these out. We'll drain whatever amount of tanks that I need to into this main engine here. I think that's the right one. Yeah. So I'm going to drain all these tanks into this big engine. And the reason I'm doing that is because if we have any fuel left over, we can just... Ooh, we are losing control of the rocket right now, so I need to drain these as much as I can, as quick as I can. Oh, hurry up. Hurry up. Drain in there. But anyways, what I was saying is that we're going to drain all these tanks, and we're going to basically use that fuel until we don't need to anymore. Use that fuel to get us into orbit. And then once we're in orbit, if we have any fuel left over, we'll just use that. We'll just put that back into those external tanks, which is a nice thing to have external tanks for. If you have external tanks, you're able to move that fuel around. But be wary, it will put off the center of gravity of your rocket, and your rocket may or may not spin out of control, which I have run into that problem before on very, very early episodes of this game. I was draining tanks into a main thrust or something, and it just completely obliterated the rocket because it just spent all the fuel, the balance was off, so it just started it into a spin, and I just could not, for the life of me, save it, and it was embarrassing. And shh, don't tell anyone. So we're going to go ahead and cut our engines now, and we are going to fast forward to get a little bit closer to our apoaps. So our thrust is actually getting us going faster rather than going up, I guess would be the correct. Well, I mean, it's not really the correct terminology, but that's more or less what I want to do. I want to be gaining horizontal velocity and not vertical velocity, if that makes more sense. That sounds way more, or sounds way better, rather. So, we're gonna attempt. Hopefully, we don't use all this fuel because it's looking like we're gonna. Um, our apoapse is well out of the atmosphere, which is good. But we really need to gain. We need to gain about 400 more, or about 500 more meters per second to really make sure that we're going to be in orbit. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this thing completely horizontal and try to get that before we run out of fuel here. So we're not looking too great right now. We're going to actually cut our engines. Wait till the apoapse again, and I didn't realize that I could. Why I'm not. Let's get to right there, and we need about 100 more, 200 more meters per second to get us into orbit, roughly. So we need 100 more meters per second. And you know you want to get into orbit. Oh, ran out of fuel. All right. We gotta disconnect that. Disconnect. Fire that. Get us back on track here. All right, we're getting into orbit now, and we just need to make sure that our periapse is above the atmosphere, which is roughly 60,000 meters or 60 kilometers. Once that's good, we're golden. Like we won't have to worry too much about it. I'm just gonna put it at 70 just to make myself feel better, and good. All right, so we are in orbit. Awesome. And we drained our external tanks. Crap. Pretty sure all of these are empty. Yep. So we're gonna go ahead and disconnect those because we don't need them anymore. We're gonna throttle just a touch, just to get away from them because we don't want to have them bang into anything because that would be bad. But we do have a full tank of fuel left to get to Duna with the nuclear engine as our thrusters, or as our thrust rather, which should be more than enough to get us to Duna, I hope anyways. So what we're going to do now, and I'm probably going to cut this part, but I'm going to extend both the apoapse and periapse out to, I think, about 700,000 or 700 kilometers above the surface of Kerbin. Probably get it up to about that point, and then I'm gonna fast forward until we get into a reasonable area around with Duna's orbit, so we can get an encounter. And I will bring you guys back when we get to that point. So I will see you in a minute. All right, guys, we got an encounter with Duna. It took a lot of finagling, and actually, true story. What happened is that the rover was in such a position orbiting Kerbin that the solar panels were facing away from the sun, and I didn't pay attention to that. So the thing died. It died, and then I had to fast forward until Kerbin was in a position orbiting the sun that the solar panels got power again. So I had to wait until that happened, and I already had a maneuver up and ready to go, and I went back in to try to do it, and turns out the thing was dead. So I had to fast forward and just wait until I could get some solar energy into the freaking rover. And then set up a whole new encounter with Duna. And so right now we are 59 days into the mission, which is a lot longer than it should have been. But yeah, funny story. Yeah, I wasn't paying attention. I'm an idiot. It's cool. So we have a encounter with Duna and roughly a 4-minute burn, which is a very long burn, but we should be able to do it without any problem because we have the nuclear engine. We have the nuclear engine, and it is extremely efficient, so we should be able to manage that burn. It's 925 meters per second that we need to change, but the good news is that we have an encounter with Duna that actually gave us a Duna periapse. Granted, the periapsis is 37 million meters away from the surface of Kerbin, or not Kerbin, Duna, sorry. But we're probably just going to add another maneuver node, like mid-trajectory, to adjust that. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible, so you guys can actually see what I'm talking about. But basically, we gotta wait until our maneuver node, which is in about 15 game minutes, I guess would be the word. Um, and we're gonna wait, or at least get close. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All right, so it's a 4 minute and 10-second burn. So we're gonna start our burn at probably 4 minutes and 20 seconds, mainly because we don't thrust the nuclear engine all the way to full power, mainly or 100%, mainly because it overheats. So we'll give ourselves a good 10-second buffer, just to play it safe, and so we can, and hopefully we'll have enough fuel to get to Duna. Though we are at a periapse right now, so then all we'll have to do is, even if we don't get a closer periapse, all we'll have to do is slow ourselves down enough to get the periapse back down to into the atmosphere, which shouldn't take too much. We're gonna start our burn. Hold on a second. Which shouldn't take too much, and we'll actually use the atmosphere to slow us down even more to make our orbit actually smaller. So we'll probably end up doing that. But oh, now it's an estimated 2 minute burn. Cool. So we'll actually just wait another 2 minutes here. So I'll just fast forward, and I don't want to fast forward too much because I don't want to miss it. It's about 2 minute and 13-second burn, which is a lot better than 4 minutes. I will definitely say that. We'll definitely have enough fuel. So we're gonna throttle up and get our burn on. This is, I guess this is the boring part, but I want to make sure that you guys can see us getting into a Duna trajectory orbit, I guess, or trajectory, I guess would be the correct way. But basically, if I don't know if you guys can see this, but I set Duna as a target, which is this pink circle on our nav ball, and our prograde, or our direction in which our satellite, or not satellite, but rover is flying, is directly in line with Duna. So we're burning. Basically, we're just gaining enough speed and literally flying directly at Duna, which is obviously not the most efficient thing to do, but if it gets us to Duna in one shot, in a quick shot, then I will take it. Where is Kerbal? And hopefully, now that we have our engines burning, we'll be fine on the dark side of Kerbal. And actually, once we get into our trajectory, I'm going to make sure that I point the rover at the sun. So while we're in our trajectory, we keep our solar panels nice and powered, so we don't run into that issue again. Because that was embarrassing, to say the least. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's I don't know, it's just the kind of things that happen that, like, because there's so much time that you spend in trying to get to certain places in this game, that you end up like forgetting about that. Kind of like how I forgot about putting a parachute on the rover itself, which was quite embarrassing. But we fixed that issue. So we are trying to get ourselves into this Duna trajectory. Um, and also, my girlfriend has arrived with delicious foods, which will be amazing to put in my face. But we are going to try to get to where our maneuver node is pointing us, and we are about 10 seconds behind on our burn, so I'm actually going to throttle up quite a bit. Not quite a bit, but enough to kind of get us back on track. So we have about a 20-second burn in the nodes in 10 seconds, so that's not too bad, but that should pretty much put us where we need to be to get to encounter with Duna, which will be the interesting part. But we are starting to come towards the end of our burn here, so we're going to start slowing down just a little bit and trying to make sure that we don't miss this, because there's very, very minimal room for error when you're trying to get to different planets, which is the hard part, I guess, would be. So I don't know if you guys know, but I don't know if you guys saw the fuel, but I'm going to show you here in a second. Um, excuse me. We still have 3/4 a tank of fuel left, so we are in good shape when it comes to actually being able to get to Duna. Because right now we're on a trajectory with it. So right now is actually probably, what was I saying? I don't even remember what I was saying. But I'm pointing the rover at the sun, even though we are the behind Kerbin, which is fine. But I think yeah, that looks about right. Hold on, let's see here. Let's get rid of this maneuver because it's kind of messing with me. Let's see if we actually do have an encounter with Duna, and we do not, unfortunately. Crap. So we got to add a maneuver node to our Kerbin orbit here. So this guy. No, I don't want to set Kerbin as a target. I don't know why it's doing that. It's probably because we haven't left the solar system yet. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Go ahead and fast forward. Get away. Get away. There we go. That's what I wanted. Okay, so now we need to adjust or add a maneuver node here and see if we can get a better encounter because we had one and now I don't know why we don't. So we are going to adjust our nodes here, try to get them close. Okay, that's way off. Go the other way. That way. Maybe. We are going to close. Close is at 90. There we go. 8 million. That's way better than 20. So cool. We got that encounter back. Thank you, maneuver nodes. I couldn't even imagine doing this without maneuver nodes. It'd be so much more difficult. It'd be like kind of just firing into the dark and hoping that you hit the right spot. So we are going to fast forward. And actually, you know what? I'll just bring you guys back in when we get close to Duna. It'll just be easier. But I just kind of wanted to see you guys, or show you guys the maneuver nodes and how I'm using them to actually get to Duna. So it makes it a lot easier. So use your maneuver nodes. So I will see you guys in a second. Alright guys, this episode ended up turning out to be a lot longer than I intended it to be. It took another 20 minutes of video to actually get onto the surface of Duna, so I'm going to split this episode into two. And believe me, we do get a somewhat successful landing on Duna. So yeah, why don't you guys go ahead and check out the next video, which is going to be actual somewhat successful landing on Duna. Thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next part.